All right, so Mark, here's the question: What does the? I don't think we can call Superman Batman a complete and total collapse just yet, but it certainly does not. Don't you feel like Warner and DC have to fix the expectations around this franchise before moving on with the standalone Wonder Woman? I mean, next year we're 18 months away from the Justice League movie.
Well, those things are already underway. I mean, there's no way. Do you really think that they're going to start, that the studio will start mandating rewrites based on.
Ben Affleck has written his standalone Batman movie.
I know.
I mean,
should they fast track that and then dump some of the other ones?
Look, if I were running Warner Brothers, I would make an executive decision to dump Zack Snyder right now.
But if you were running Warner Brothers, you would have already made the mistake of hiring Zack Snyder.
Well, that's it. That's the problem. They never should have done that. I could have told him that, as everyone knows.
You see that movie, and I know the movie's been out for like 3-4 weeks now, but that scene, the scene in the movie where Batman looks at the files, at the computer files that show you little glimpses of Aquaman, little glimpse of Cyborg, little glimpse of the Wonder Woman movie. They all look Flash. They all look so. The Flash from could be fun, but they all look
they got the creepy guy from.
He is creepy. Kevin, the Kevin movie. Something about Kevin.
Yeah, why would you hire him? Like, truly, did you read this? Because Zack Snyder's like, I don't think we can really go with the guy from the Flash TV show. It's not really our world. It's like, so you're going to hire the guy from somebody? What's wrong with you?
You know why? Because I guarantee Zack Snyder saw that Kevin movie.
I mean, Grant Gustin is great on television. He's great.
He's too. You know what? The TV DC world is much closer aligned stylistically with the Marvel movie world.
Yes.
It's too bright and poppy and fun and charming and whatever. They want the kid who looked like a creepy serial killer in that Something About Kevin movie, and that's what they want.
Yeah, well.
Because he's badass.
Yeah.
He's badass Flash.
They need to take a cue and realize that this whole DC world is a little bit too self-serious.
And when it comes to Flash, nothing, I'm sorry, I don't care what they do with the Flash, nothing will be better than the scene in whatever it was, the X-Men movie where Quicksilver runs around really fast to the song Time in a Bottle.
True.
Remember that?
Yeah.
That was hilarious. That was
great.
That was a great moment.
That was.
And they'll never replicate that because that's not where the priorities are. The priority is to make him as mean and badass and dark as he can possibly be.
Yeah, whatever.
But I'm just wondering whether, like some of these DC films, why are we talking about this? Some of these DC films that come out like way in the future, right? When they plotted it out to like 2020 in that big press release, there might still be time to maybe lighten up a little bit. Because the thing with Marvel, what they've done is they've been clever. You've got the Guardians of the Galaxy, you've got Ant-Man, right? You've got some of these other films, you've even got Deadpool. There's a little bit of a spread there in terms of how funny, clever, charming, serious they are.
And Doctor Strange is going to be an interesting thing too. I think Cumberbatch is a really good choice for that, and that is arguably my favorite Marvel hero, Doctor Strange.
You know what? No, that's lame.
It's great. Did you ever see the TV movie Doctor Strange?
No one cares about the
'80s.
No one
really
cares.
Good.
Lame.
Really
Doctor Strange is lame. Because he's not a superhero. Is like he wears his underwear on the outside and he fights supervillains. Doctor Strange is he's like David Copper. He's
a sorcerer.
He's like that Doug Henning.
It's all mystical.
He's like Doug Henning or something.
It's mystical.
He's like Doug Henning is a superhero.
That's right. Yeah. Doug Henning also wears. He wore that like superhero-y outfit. It was like that skin tight polyester with the bell bottoms. It was creepy.
It's all coming together.
And the buck teeth and the '70s hair.
All right, what are we talking about?
So you know what? I've been hanging on to a lot of Asian stuff for a while, and primarily Hong Kong. What?
That sounds.
Okay, so let me go through some of these because there's some interesting stuff here. Primarily Chinese films. The Nightingale, which was a Chinese submission for the Academy Award, not exactly a great film, but one of the better films that China has submitted in a while. This is from 2013. People have to understand also that there's a disconnect. One reason why Chinese films have never particularly fared well at the Academy Awards, at least not since they had their little run of Zhang Yimou films in the 80s and early 90s, one reason that they haven't fared well is because there's a disconnect between Chinese filmmakers and the government. The films the government feels they want to push and to bolster and to promote are not necessarily the good films. They're the ones that all have kind of a state message, a party message, and the ones that they're really good filmmakers make tend to be really kind of very critical, socially critical films that the government doesn't approve of. So you get a very interesting disconnect. This is one where that actually didn't necessarily completely happen. It's a good, solid drama. It's a nice family drama. It doesn't push a lot of envelopes, but it also isn't propagandistic. So that being said, it is The Nightingale is a nicely shot movie, basically about a guy who has lost his wife, and he goes back to his hometown to free this little bird that has been his sole companion. And there you wind up throwing in the granddaughter, and sort of all these other people and pieces fall into the story, and it becomes very, very sweet and touching. So it's not genius, but it's not propagandistic, and I thought it was perfectly fine. Then we've got a couple of interesting things here. Mark, I'm going to make you laugh. Okay, I want you. No, stop. So we have two movies here. I just want to show you the artwork on the cover of both.
They're exactly almost the same. Each one features two people dangling from a building by their very fingertips.
But exactly the same angle too.
Pretty much.
So marketing in China has pretty much gone the same way as marketing in the U.S., which is when somebody does something, everybody does the same thing. So we have first of all a movie called Two Guys Dangling from the a ledge out of the inferno. Feel the heat. This is unfortunately not the film that I really wanted it to be. This is from the Pang brothers, who were once kind of a thing, and they have all but disappeared. Why have the Pang brothers kind of fallen off the map, Mark?
Well, because I'm trying to think of a joke with the name Pang.
Yeah.
Because they drink too much Tang.
I mean, Bangkok Dangerous and The Eye.
Bangkok Dangerous is good.
They did. They had some good stuff. Anyway, so they had their moment and kind of went away. But in any case, this is, I guess they're making do with what they can. Anyway, the whole thing, this is kind of a towering inferno story about a couple of guys who have to evacuate a commercial tower when it catches fire on the hottest day of the year. Okay, fair enough, whatever. But the more interesting film to make mention of is Lost in Hong Kong. Now, Lost in Hong Kong is this is on Blu-ray, and this is from Wellgo, and it was a gigantic success in China. Until the new Stephen Chow film had been released, which is just within the last month and a half, which is now like the most popular film in the history of the Chinese-speaking people. Lost in Hong Kong was a big deal, and it was the sequel to that, was it Lost in Vietnam? The one that before it?
I do not remember.
You have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay. So anyway, which is basically like The Hangover for China, and that was a big hit as well. The guy who directed this, huge director in China. He makes a lot of big blockbusters. Bottom line is, this is a horrible movie. Lost in Hong Kong is just a terrible movie. It's a big, convoluted, confused, blockbustery thing that says that China now has they adopted the Hollywood model, and they're just going to load a bunch of stars into a silly slapstick comedy and have a bunch of really big, obnoxious, overblown, expensive set pieces, and people go and flock to it in droves. And the era of great Chinese filmmaking is effectively over. So anyway, Xu Zheng, who stars in it, wrote it, directed it, he's like the deal over there. He's a big deal. Lost in Thailand. That was the previous film, Lost in Thailand. So anyway, he's the big deal, and these movies get very, very minimal marketing in the U.S., but they are huge in China. I don't like it at all, but if you want to see what they're flocking to the theaters to see in China, by all means, go check it out. Then an interesting film called Masterless, which is I hesitate to call it Zen. This is from Arc Entertainment. But it's there's a kind of an interesting Zen thing to this. This deals with it's I don't even want to say it's superhero-y, but anyway. So there's a guy who is let's say he kind of lives in two parallel worlds, and in one he's an architect, and in the other he's a samurai. He's a Ronin, a roving samurai, and he has to somehow reconcile those two worlds, and they each have an effect on the other, and bring his life issues together. Does that make sense? Or am I completely...
You never make sense.
I never make sense. Well, anyway, it's called Masterless. Daring film. Sort of more philosophical than narrative, but certainly worth it. And then real quickly, Kung Fu, Trailers of Fury. Blu-ray from Severin with lots of really, really great trailers on it. Very, very funny. Rick Myers, unfortunately, shows up and does an audio commentary, which I'm so tired of his commentaries. He just finagles his way into everything. He also has a featurette on here with along with Frank Jang. Anyway, a lot of fun stuff here, though. I mean, Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan films get, a story of Drunken Master, Enter the Fat Dragon. There's a lot of good trailers here. It's fun. It's good watch. And then lastly, but most importantly, there is a whole... This is a revelation for martial arts fans. The Golden Harvest collection, which has been which was bought by Warner Brothers years ago, used to be with Media Asia, went from Golden Harvest to Media Asia, which was kind of a sister company, and then finally wound up at Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers doesn't really know what to do with these films, so they're finally releasing them as kind of a subcategory, a separate brand within the Warner Archive library. And they're all MOD, but people have to be elated because finally these movies are coming out again, and many of them have never been out at all. So here's what I have. I have the first 6 films from the Golden Harvest brand of the Warner Archive, and here's what we have. You ready for this, Mark?
I'm ready.
You ready? You better believe you're ready. Blade of Fury, starring T. Long, which is a really, really fun film. T. Long, of course, was a big deal. This takes place in the 19th century during the Japanese occupation of Taiwan, and it's a Qing Dynasty period piece. Good fun. Pedicab Driver, a classic. This is Sammo Hung stars in and directed, and this is one of the great classic Hong Kong New Wave films of all time. Lau Kar-leung is in this. I mean, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. One of the best things that Sammo Hung's ever done. Compares with the very best of Jackie Chan films. You must see this movie. If you love Hong Kong New Wave films, you must see this. Big Bullet. One of the later Hong Kong New Wave films. This is from Benny Chan, stars the great Lau Ching-wan. Good action film. Not one of my favorites. I think that it sort of wallows in the wake of John Woo and Ringo Lam a little bit, but it's still very, very good. And as far as one of those tough, hard-boiled cop movies, it's still a very, very popular one. The Blade is one of the more popular Choi Hak films. It is kind of a variation on the one-armed swordsman films that were a big deal back in the 60s and into the early 70s. This is a much grittier, more grueling reinvention of it. Vincent Zhao, who was supposed to be sort of the new Jet Li for a moment and a half, is very, very good in the lead. And of course, it is stylish and has some great, great action stuff in it. So The Blade, this is one I wish was on Blu-ray. Unfortunately, it's not. Then we also have Peter Chan has been he's had a career on both sides. He did that Kate Capshaw film. The Love Letter?
Star Wars?
No, The Love Letter. I think it was The Love Letter. Anyway, Peter Chan had a moment here in Hollywood. I interviewed him at the time. Didn't quite work out for him, but he has since gone on to do some rather big, elaborate period pieces back in Hong Kong and in China. But before that, he made some really, really cool kind of comedies and dramas and contemporary stuff. And this is sort of the one that really put him on the map. He's a woman, she's a man. Which has a fantastic cast. The late Anita Yuen, the late Leslie Chung, just really fantastic. Karina Lau, Eric Tsang. I mean, this is like an all-star cast, and 2 people who are severely missed today. And this is basically about a fan who disguises herself as a man so she can meet her pop star idol, and that's it. And it says a lot about the pop music scene in Hong Kong, but it's also, it says a lot about the pop music and the fan scene outside. It's a really, really sweet film, and oftentimes very, very funny. And then lastly, did you ever see A Terracotta Warrior?
I did.
Did you?
It's good.
It is good.
Yeah, I did see it.
Do you remember who the star is? You see, nobody at the time knew who the star was because he hadn't gone on to actually become famous. So nobody realized that the star of A Terracotta Warrior is Zhang Yimou.
Yeah.
He starred in it.
Interesting.
And then he went on to become a legendary filmmaker,
sure.
and nobody really kind of put two and two together.
Huh.
So Zhang Yimou and Gong Li, of course, had already begun their relationship at this time. And so Gong Li and Zhang Yimou actually did star together in a movie. It's the only significant performance that he's ever given. But it is also interesting because it's directed by Ching Su-tung, who is a legendary fight choreographer and action director in his own right. And Ching Su-tung, of course, has gone on to do action directing in a lot of Zhang Yimou's movies. So they've had a wonderful relationship over the years. Anyway, good film. Also, Yurong Guang, if anybody knows the name, Yurong Guang had a great fight scene. Has had a number of great fight scenes with people all over the map, especially with Jet Li and a couple of films. So anyway, Terracotta Warrior. Basically, it's a fish out of water thing about a terracotta warrior who wakes up after 3,000 years and has a whole little fish out of water moment, kind of a sort of a standard Hollywood trope, but it works. It's a really sweet film. So anyway, those are all on MOD from the Golden Harvest the Golden Harvest subcategory of the Warner Archive collection, and I think that's awesome.
Wait, by the way, before we move on, can I just recommend, this has been posted on HollywoodReporter.com for a couple weeks now, but they posted a great interview with Richard Donner.
Yeah.
Talking about the making of Superman.
Yes.
The Superman, the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to read this. I don't know if you've read it. It is fantastic. Donner just puts it all on the table. He talks about how he got this call from the Salkinds, who were just cheap as crap. They were just the cheapest producers on the planet. And Guy Hamilton, who directed a couple of Bond films, Guy Hamilton had dropped out of directing Superman.
Oh, I didn't know Guy Hamilton was originally on board. Really?
And then the Salkinds said, you know what, Donner, we want you to have this gig, and we'll give you $1 million, which in 1970, whatever, was like all the money in the world to him.
Yeah.
So he takes it, and he reads the script. He said the Salkinds sent him the script. They sent him the script, and the script was 500 pages.
Okay, 500?
According to Donner in this article.
Okay.
It was I'm sure it wasn't exactly 500 pages, but it was 500 pages, and the package that they sent him to entice him included not only the script, but a Superman costume. So the script was so bad that it included a scene where Superman was flying around Metropolis looking for all the bald-headed people in the city because one of them is going to be Lex Luthor. Right? So he's flying around looking for bald-headed people, and he sees a bald-headed guy. He lands on the ground. He thinks he's Lex Luthor, and the guy turns around, and it is Telly Savalas, who hands him a lollipop and says, "Who loves you, babe?" That was one of the scenes in the movie, in the script. And then Donner says, this thing is a piece of crap. And then he said he was the one who brought in Tom Mankiewicz and said, this scene's got to be rewritten. And the Salkinds was like, no, it's perfect. You're not going to rewrite it. It's perfect. And then Donner said, well, then I'm not working on it. And the Salkinds said, okay, bring in your guy and start working on it. And it just goes on from there. He talks about casting Chris Reeves and working with Brando, who he said was just fantastic. Brando, of course, in usual Brando style, did have to have his lines on pieces of paper taped to the cast chests because he wouldn't remember his lines. But he said ultimately working with Brando was just fantastic. And it's a great article. It's in HollywoodReporter.com. It's been posted for a couple of weeks. So, it's out there. You got to read it. It's great.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, we got a few catalog things from last week that we didn't get to. Mark, you want to talk about that one, and then I'll hit the Twilight Time, and we'll then move on.
You know what's funny is that we're going to talk about Boost with James Woods and Sean Young. There is Sean Young's in her 60s now. It's hard to believe that she was like the pretty young thing of Hollywood. Or that she dressed up as Catwoman and tried to bust into Tim Burton's office and try to get him to cast her as Catwoman.
That's the greatest psycho story ever.
It really is.
That's fantastic.
She's being interviewed recently. I'm not sure what she has to promote, but there is an interview with her out there, and she does talk about this. Anyway, she also talks about her very interesting relationship with James Woods, she had a relationship with James Woods, and there was a
Didn't she put a dead horse's head in his bed or something?
no. There was a story. There was a story about how Sean Young superglued James Woods' penis to his thigh. And that was a story that was out there for a long time, and no one really knows if it's true or not, but it's just the greatest. Anyway, they did a film together called Boost, and this thing was directed by Harold Becker. Now, Harold Becker, he's a good director. I don't know that he ever made a film as great as we wanted Harold Becker to be, but he is a good director, hard-boiled, Sidney Lumet type director. This is not his best film. It stars James Woods, and they're this young couple living in L.A., fast lane kind of couple. When there's a real estate downturn, now this was in 1988, so this is not the 2008 downturn, this is the 1988 downturn. Real estate downturn, and they're unemployed, and then they decide how they're going to get on with their lives now that they're unemployed, and the real estate market crashed. So it's not a bad film, but it's not one of Becker's best films. So I would definitely, if you're interested in James Woods and Sean Young, maybe you are. She was young and hot back then. This was almost 20 years ago. Check out The Boost from Hemdale. The good folks at Hemdale, which is no longer a thing.
Hemdale, who still owes me $250. Probably about $600 now.
They
plus
do?
Interest. Yep. Sure do. From when I was PA. Yep. Never got paid.
What movie?
That would have been The Legend of Wolf Mountain.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Boy, what a movie that was. Anyway, Twilight Time. Bunch of new titles from Twilight Time, who keeps coming up with really interesting stuff. They just mine those 20th Century Fox and other licensed titles and come up with great stuff. So there are only 3,000 units of each of these, and you can get them at TwilightTimeMovies.com or ScreenArchives.com. And they, of course, come with the isolated score and all the other usual goodies that make them so great. The first one is Alexander the Great, which is Richard Burton playing Alexander in a 1956 film that was probably largely overshadowed by the Ten Commandments the same year. The Alexander the Great it's not directed by Robert Rossen, who big deal, written, produced, and directed by Rossen, big deal director, big deal filmmaker from the era. I mean, really, he knows his stuff. The only thing that diminishes this, I think, is the fact that they didn't get really great elements out of MGM. I think that's unfortunate, but it's the best that they've got until somebody executes a full restoration. So they did a good job for the most part. Isolated music track, Claire Bloom talking about Alexander the Great in the original trailer. Movie that this is completely off my radar, 10 Rillington Place. You ever heard of this, Mark?
I have not.
10 Rillington Place. I don't know how this one ever completely missed me. This is a Richard Fleischer film, of all things, from 1971, which, was not exactly my favorite era growing up, because that was, I had better things to do in 1971. I was, playing on a playground. But anyway, this is a Richard Fleischer film starring Richard Attenborough and John Hurt, a very young John Hurt, that is based on a serial killer case, the creepy thing is that Richard Attenborough plays the serial killer, and it's a grittier kind of story than you usually get out of Richard Fleischer, but it's actually very effective and it dates surprisingly well. So it's got all kinds of mood and it's creepy, and it's a story that I was completely unfamiliar with and a movie I was unfamiliar with. So 10 Rillington Place is worth checking out as well. And that also comes with an audio commentary from Judy Gleason, who's one of the co-stars in the film, along with Lem Dobbs and Nick Redman from Twilight Time. So Lem Dobbs steps up and gives you some interesting insights
Terrific
on this.
screenwriter, works with Soderbergh.
You also have a separate audio commentary from John Hurt, which I was very, very grateful for, because I saw John Hurt on stage, and the guy is just not to be believed. He's just one of our great classics.
He's the hurtiest.
The great Sidney Poitier classic, Lilies of the Field. I'm always amazed. I don't know how Twilight Time prized something like this loose for Blu-ray. This is bravo, good on you. Looks gorgeous. Also get a Lem Dobbs commentary on this, along with Julie Kirgo and Nick Redman. And this is just a fantastic film still. I mean, Sidney Poitier and Nuns. I don't know that it gets any better, really. It's a wonderful movie. It has never dated poorly and still deserves to be seen to this day. Exodus kind of was always a little bit on the nose. This is one of Otto Preminger's most obvious movies, but it's an all-star cast. Of course, deals primarily with the creation of the State of Israel. Paul Newman, Eva Marie Saint, Sal Mineo, Lee J. Cobb, John Derek. I mean, everybody shows up in this movie. Hugh Griffith. It's just, Ralph Richardson. It's just a huge, sprawling all-star thing, and it's really most famous for its music. The Ernest Gold score is one of the greatest scores ever written. Very, very highly respected. And this looks really good on Blu-ray, although it is quite clear that they also did not get the best available condition with the elements. So that also probably needs a restoration. And then Anastasia is the Ingrid Bergman film from the Ingrid Bergman star vehicle from 1956. Basically, the story of the daughter, the Romanov daughter from of the Russian czars, who allegedly may have escaped assassination during the Russian Revolution, and it's a bit of a fabricated story. It's based on a lot of lore, but it's actually despite the fact that it's not even remotely factual, it's still a really nice film. This one comes piled sky high with extras, tons of audio commentary material here, including Arthur Lawrence, James MacArthur, film historians on 2 different tracks, newsreels, trailers. I mean, this is just loaded with good stuff. So if you like Ingrid Bergman, if you like the story, that's worth checking out. And that is it for the Twilight Time titles this month. So good on Twilight Time. All right, Mark, shall we dip into documentary or television?
Television.
All right. You asked for it.
You asked for it. You got it, Toyota.
We're loaded with TV today. We're just piled sky high with TV. So let's blow through it. You want to start? Oh, why don't I just start? Make mention real quickly of NYPD Blue season 9. This is getting right onto the tail end of the show. This is after Rick Schroeder had left, and Dennis Franz was now being paired with Mark Paul Gosselaar, and it still kind of feels like the same show, but it belabors the point a little bit. It's kind of running on fumes at this point. 22 episodes, season 9. And Stephen Bochco, this was sort of his swan song as a big television guy, right? I mean, he hasn't really had any hit series since. He was man right up until that moment, and then he went away.
That's it. You know what?
Dick Wolf replaced him.
Huh?
He replaced Glenn Larson, and Glenn Larson got replaced by Stephen J. Cannell, and Cannell got replaced by Bochco, and Bochco got replaced by Dick Wolf, and I don't know who the man is right now, but anyway, that's kind of the big.
It's Shonda Rhimes is the man right now.
Yeah, you're right, Shonda Rhimes. Anyway, the TV showrunner Daisy Chain.
Well, Shonda Rhimes, I mean, she has she's become a
Shondaland.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. She's a cottage industry, just like they all were. I mean, they all are. So anyway, that's out there. What else we got?
What else out there is House of Lies. I never really got into the show that much, although I love Don Cheadle, mainly because I don't have Showtime. But I do catch up with it sporadically here and there on DVD, of which this is the 4th season. House of Lies, Don Cheadle, Kristen Bell. I've never been a big fan of Kristen Bell. She's too perfect and Barbie looking for me. But anyway, this thing was created by Matthew Carnahan, so I do like him. He's a very kind of tough-minded kind of a director and show creator. Anyway, so this is season 4 of House of Lies. We have that. We also have a show that is entering its final season on Cinemax. This is Banshee. Banshee is a weird kind of a show. It's about this ex-convict who winds up being a sheriff in this Amish town called Banshee. And it's kind of funky and kind of cool and kind of dark, and I do like a lot of this. I like the fact that Cinemax is, which has kind of been, it doesn't really have the cachet of the HBO original shows and even the Showtime original shows, but Cinemax, they're out there trying, so you might as well do something really weird like Banshee. So the final season premieres in the spring, so this is season 3. I think 4 seasons is plenty for this particular show, but there you go, Banshee. It's definitely a funky little cool undergroundy kind of show you may want to check out. What you may not want to check out is the horrible remake of The Odd Couple. This is season 1 on DVD. This is with Matthew Perry
Should
and
not exist.
Thomas Lennon. I don't know.
You know, there was like a version of The Odd Couple, if you remember, with black actors for a moment, DeMont Wilson, and
Right, DeMont Wilson.
yeah, which that was just a bad move as well back in the 80s. I don't know why they keep trying to really find like new ways of doing The Odd Couple. It worked once, move on, find something else, do something fresh.
Why would see? Here's the thing: you get Matthew Perry, who does The Odd Couple, lame, destined to fail or not be well received, and then you get Matt LeBlanc, who is doing episodes on Showtime, and that is something that at least is out there trying something interesting. Episodes has had some great episodes, and season 4 is on DVD, and this show really has had some pretty amazing moments, and it's just bizarre when you look at like Matt LeBlanc taking some chances with episodes, and you look at Matthew Perry just doing just this lame, stupid sitcom on CBS. It's just those Friends guys, they really just can't get it together unless you're Jennifer Aniston, I guess.
So Eric John Roche's The Spoils of Babylon, which was originally on IFC. Did you follow this?
No.
This is basically a kind of a soap opera spoof. The Eric John Roche is Will Ferrell, essentially, and this is kind of like a Peyton Place parody. It's everybody just really hamming it up in a huge way. Tobey Maguire and Kristen Wiig. It's just Tim Robbins is in this as well. It's just a big, silly, sprawling parody, which is very odd to watch when it's made for television. Collaboration between IFC and Funny or Die. I guess it's fine. I guess this is enjoyable, but it still feels like an overextended Funny or Die sketch. Fundamentally, Maude. We get the complete 4th season of Maude, which 24 episodes, no extras, ongoing wonderfulness of the 1975-76 season, which of course the show was originally a spin-off from All in the Family. We've given you that whole spin-off lore before. The Nanny, the final season, thank goodness. Fran Drescher's last mighty claim to fame. And this show really went on much, much longer than it needed to. But here it is, finally wrapping it out. And if you're a fan of The Nanny, then there's obviously nothing I can do to dissuade you from that. And then the complete 5th season of Louie, which continues to be one of television's great bright spots. I don't think anybody ever imagined that Louis C.K. would become... would push the envelope. When we first started this whole thing, and I guess it effectively started with Home Improvement, where the whole idea was, let's get a stand-up comic and frame a sitcom around them, as opposed to framing it around an actor or an ensemble. Let's just get a stand-up comic who already brings an audience and a cachet with him. And I don't think anybody ever thought that Louis C.K. would be the guy to sort of blow that whole model up and take it into really creative new areas. But he has.
And the thing with him is that he takes a lot. That show is done on a shoestring budget because he takes a lot of risks. He's like, look, let me do whatever I want to do. You barely have to even pay me.
Yeah.
He really takes nothing for that show. That show costs nothing to do.
I know.
But obviously, like all great filmmakers who want to do something interesting, they're willing to take less money in order to create what they want to create.
Great guest stars on this. Jimmy Fallon even shows up. 5th season, and continues to be one of the most daring things on television. Very odd series, Dinotopia, the series. I did not know this ever existed, and I'm not sure that I needed to. This is from Mill Creek. This is 9 hours, 13 episodes that are just so dreadfully cheesy. I just don't even know where to go. This based on these books by somebody named James Gurney about a family stranded in like a prehistoric world. It's very strange, and it doesn't really work. I hope this never crosses my radar again. My Big Fat Greek Life, the complete series, this thing tanked. This was a horrible attempt at transferring that My Big Fat Greek Wedding to television. Did not work at all, and of course now we have My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, which is tanking, I believe, isn't it?
I just think that movie had its moment, and now the moment is over.
Well,
what movie needs to be on Blu-ray, by the way?
Look, I love Lainie Kazan, but seriously, how much plastic surgery does one person need? I interviewed her. She was a delight. She was wonderful. She looked charming. Since then, she's like replaced every single part of her face. What's going on? What is up with that?
Because they all feel like they don't want to look old or get old.
Stop.
By the way, can I tell you what movie needs to be on Big Night? Big Blu-ray. Big Night.
Yes.
Big Night needs to be on Blu-ray.
Yes.
Why is that? Why is
I
that
don't know.
Stanley Tucci mini classic not on Blu-ray?
I have no idea.
I love that movie.
It's a fantastic movie. It's a great movie, and it's a classic, and it's completely forgotten. I don't know. I have no answers. And then let's see. In the beginning I'll make a very quick mention of this. This is the story of Abraham, right, with Martin Landau playing Abraham and Jacqueline Bisset playing Sarah. It's, you know what? Here's the problem. All of these old biblical things. This is about 3 hours long, and this was a big TV production back in whenever it was. The problem with all of these biblical things is they do one of two takes. Either they all act as though they know that what they are acting comes from the Bible, so there is this overwrought sanctimoniousness to it, or they go the complete opposite direction, which is, well, we're just going to pretend this is just an average, ordinary thing. Like, there's nothing special about this at all. And it becomes this really kind of counterintuitive, drab, march through humdrum period, some kind of a desert narrative that appears to have no reason to exist. None of these things ever work very well. This is directed by Kevin Connor, and it's so overwrought. It's not Martin Landau's finest hour, and it just tries too hard. So I can't recommend that. This was a show that I was really actually quite fond of when it was on. It didn't last very long, but I am thrilled that this is out again. This is also from Mill Creek. Future Cop, the complete series, with Ernest Borgnine, John Amos, and Michael Shannon, a very, very good Michael Shannon, who sort of went off the radar completely. But this is really, really quite cool. This is sort of part of the moment the television had in the wake of the $6 Million Man, where everybody was looking to do something similar. And the idea here is that Michael Shannon basically plays a new kind of cop who's an android. And he, of course, is kind of like a superhero cop. He's, smarter, and he's got, super strength and the whole thing. And Ernest Borgnine is that crusty old partner who just tries to convince him, you got to have a little bit of humanity. And it actually kind of works. It's a little dated, and the show lasted not even half a season. But, Ernest Borgnine's great, John Amos is great, and I cannot say enough about Michael Shannon, who does a really, really good job. So this is a weird little blip from, television in the 1970s, and it deserves to be rediscovered. It's really a lot of fun. Future Cop, the complete series, which is not much.
Wade, let's do Fear the Walking Dead.
Booyah.
Season 1 of Fear the Walking Dead is on Blu-ray. This is a special edition. This has bonus features and deleted scenes and commentaries. I was... not a fan of this. I like the idea that they transplanted this spinoff to Los Angeles, and I really like the idea that they had it take place sort of at the very beginnings of the outbreak. But the family that they picked is kind of like a lame family that I'm not that interested in, and I kind of felt like what seemed like a shrewd move is it picked up steam later in the season, so I guess, maybe as it goes along you might enjoy it more, but... in early April, the new season comes back. But, so a lot of bonus features, as I said, deleted scenes and this stuff about the stunts and the locations and whatnot. So Fear the Walking Dead, I was kind of hoping would be better. Hopefully they'll correct the mistakes of Season 1, make it better for Season 2. There's a show on Cinemax. We just talked about Cinemax that I barely even... This thing is not even a blip on the radar. This thing called Strike Back. It's the final season. It's Season 4 of the show, the final season, and I just think this thing is just ridiculous. It takes place... There's this British anti-terrorist group called Section 20, and they span the globe fighting terrorists. They're in Japan, and they're in Russia, and there's cyber terrorists. And I just think this thing is really overwrought. I was just never a big fan of it. Like two of the characters was named Damien Scott and Michael Stonebridge. Damien and Stonebridge. With names like that, you know what that means? It means they're badass because they're Damien
and Stonebridge.
Stonebridge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't you understand? Anyway, people who like that kind of, that this kind of stuff, spy drama and
They never have names like Fizzy Dirkwater or
they really don't.
or Schmoey Schmolovitz.
See, that was my thing with. I used to have this theory about Wall Street. Like if Wall Street, the not just the street, but the whole financial thing. If Wall Street was called like Fizzle Bottom Road, somehow it just wouldn't be as cool. Oliver Stone presents Fizzle Bottom Road, starring Charlie Sheen.
That's true.
No, Wall Street, that's the one. Anyways, people like this Strike Back, even though it's totally under the radar. I was kind of like, you know what? I just feel like I've seen this a million times before. So I'm not
Fizzy
into it.
Bottom Road.
Oh, season 2 of Manhattan, which is another one of those shows that's kind of like a little bit under the radar. This is all about what's happening in Los Alamos as the nuclear bomb is being created. This show mixes history and personal in a way that I think is occasionally pretty interesting. I think this show needs kind of like a bit of a I don't know, like a boost in scripting or a boost in interesting direction or maybe better casting, because somehow it's not really reaching its potential, but it is kind of an interesting show, Manhattan. So season 2 is on Blu-ray, and there you go.
All righty. So let me roll through a few more little classic-y things here. One is a series that the first season of a series. And this comes to us from the collaboration between Timeless Media and Shout. Timeless, of course, has been releasing a lot of westerns and interesting TV. And this is the collector's edition of the complete first season of Death Valley Days. Now, 18 episodes. And a lot of people are thinking, Death Valley Days, what's Death Valley Days? I've never heard of it before. The only reason I know about Death Valley Days, I used to, I grew up, Mark, as you did. We grew up in an era where there was pre-cable. First television I ever had in the house was a black and white, like 19-inch television, and I didn't know there was such a thing as color. So when we first got a color TV, and suddenly I got to see Batman in color as opposed to seeing the black and white thing that said Batman in color, and then it was always in black and white. That was a pretty exciting thing. But I would always go try to tune in some of those UHF channels, right? You go off the dial and you try to get some of that higher stuff, like 63, 68, and you tune in some of those channels, and then you get really weird stuff. You get like the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi would be rambling for hours on end, or you'd get some weird local talk show from somewhere out in like Kern County where somebody'd be complaining about tomato harvest or something. It was very odd
like
stuff.
Dr. Gene Scott,
that kind of stuff. You get all of that way up and off the dial. And then you'd occasionally get some interesting reruns. You'd get, odd reruns at odd hours of the day or interesting movies. And one of those was Death Valley Days. And I would once in a while be able to tune it in and check out Death Valley Days, which originally started in the radio era, believe it or not. And it's one of the longest-running Western series ever, even though it's kind of largely forgotten today. But it still is actually pretty good, and it is basically fact-based in very broad strokes, and deals with people who, essentially kind of built this particular part of the California West. And some good acting and some good guest stars, and actually it's a nice show to rediscover. It really has a sheen to it that other shows from the era, like Wagon Train and Bonanza and Big Valley and all those other shows from the era, Gunsmoke, that they didn't really quite capture. And Death Valley Days is a nice compliment to that era and to that genre. So bravo that comes back. A Tale of Two Cities was a television miniseries that attempted to tell a story that people have been trying to remake forever. The definitive film is still the old black and white adaptation, but this is not too terrible. This is from 1981. And this is a Shout Factory Blu-ray, so they have done a nice job of making it look really pretty and sparkling. Alice Krieg, who of course has continued to be a really, really good actress, she shows up in this. Peter Cushing, Barry Morse. This thing got a pile of Emmy nominations as well. And it is not the definitive telling of the story. It is not definitively Dickens. It is not definitively the French Revolution. But it's okay. It's fine. It's okay. It's one of the few versions that exists out there, so we have to kind of live with it. The complete series of Hogan's Heroes finally out. All 168 episodes on 27 discs in a single box set. This doesn't really do anything that wasn't already done. We've already had this series out in individual season sets, and that kind of fits the bill. If you want to have it in a single, like 2 mega keep case thing where all the seasons are in a nice little single box set, then this certainly saves you some space, but otherwise there's no reason to upgrade. It's got all the same stuff. Audio commentaries, gag reel, and all that kind of junk. But I still love this show. You know how popular this became in Germany, actually, just in the last 20 years?
Yeah, because in Germany, they have no idea that there actually was World War II or Nazis or anything.
I think it's a little bit cathartic. It kind of lets some of the steam out. And then, lastly, I got a couple here from Universal. One is Heroes Reborn, which we have to say nice things about because Greg Grunberg is a friend, and we can't say anything even remotely derogatory about anything that Greg Grunberg does, in which we didn't even mention him in Star Wars last week. We didn't even kind of pay homage to Greg, who, by the way, when Greg shows up, I don't know if your screening of Force Awakens was this way, but when Greg shows up in that scene where they're sitting around the table and everybody's talking their strategy, the obligatory Star Wars strategize around the little hollow table scene, right, which they all have. When that scene came up in our screening, everyone started laughing. You realize that? Everyone started laughing because it is such an inside joke now. Everyone's like, of course. Every movie that JJ makes, Greg has to show up. Every TV show JJ makes, Greg shows up. Then, literally just last week, they announced that Bad Robot was going to make a film from Greg's graphic novel. Yeah. It's just like, Greg made the best friend in the world when he made friends with JJ. That has just been...
But JJ's very loyal to people. He really is very loyal.
Very loyal.
And that's a good thing. That's a great thing.
And Greg is a great actor. I mean, I have to give him credit. Greg is a terrific actor.
And a good drummer.
I remember when he was just really, really struggling to get that acting career going, and it finally popped for him, and it just, he's made the best of it. And he used to always make me laugh so hard, and he gave me a wonderful Amazon review for my Jackie Chan book. So what can I say? Anyway, Heroes Reborn revisits, of course, the hit show, which, of course, at one point, one of the key writers on that show was my very good friend Natalie Chides from film school. Natalie, who is now showrunner on Hunters, along with Galen Hurd, which has a big launch party that I'm going to be going to tomorrow. And anyway, Heroes Reborn, the event series is good. It's good. If you're a fan of the original Heroes, this revisits it in a very satisfying way. And then, lastly, for my little stack here, The Expanse, Season 1, one of the most interesting science fiction shows ever, at least in the last 25 years. This is on Sci-Fi, and I think this really steps it up for Sci-Fi. This takes place just a couple of centuries in the future where the solar system is colonized, and it really limits the science fiction aspect in an interesting way. It suggests that once humanity has colonized the solar system, suddenly all of our social divisions and all of the issues, all that sort of afflict mankind, redefine themselves. They don't go away. They're the same issues, but they redefine themselves within the confines of a solar system and all of the new, it sort of creates a whole new frontier in the way the solar system is structured. And it's really quite fascinating, and they've thought it through in a really, really great way. And you build it around a missing persons case, and you suddenly make the future feel incredibly earthy and a little bit like the Wild West all over again. So I thought this is a really, really interesting way of reinventing the science fiction show. Thomas Jane finally gets that television role that he's just been needing for the longest time. This is a guy who's been born to anchor a TV series, and he finally gets a really good one. So I think The Expanse on Blu-ray and Ultraviolet is pretty solid, man. I'm looking forward to what they do with this series.
Wade Major. Grace and Frankie Season 1 on DVD. Why is it not on Blu-ray? Because if you're likely to want to buy Grace and Frankie, you don't even own a Blu-ray player.
There you go.
This is from Netflix. This stars Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, who both have had a lot of work done. I saw Jane Fonda at one of those year-end parties we go to at LAFCA. Mm-hmm. And even though it's funny, when you see her on TV, you go, God, she's had a lot of work done. That's terrible. When you see her in person, she looked a lot better. Anyway, Grace and Frankie is a funny show. It's a little bit caricaturish, but it is a cute show. It's about Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin play these two women who have never liked each other, and they both been married to the same. They've both been married for many, many years, And it turns out that both of their husbands, played by Martin Sheen and Sam Waterston, both their husbands are leaving them so that they can marry each other. What? Their wives? They're leaving their wives to marry each other?
See, this is where we've come to now, is that we've television for so long, it was taboo to have any representation of gay characters or gay relationships, that you then move into where, well, it's okay, we have Will and Grace, and so now we've moved to the next step, which is it's become a narrative trope. Like now
it's becoming a cliche now?
It's become a cliche. It's become a thing that we use not to make it treat it in and of itself, but to sort of motivate other weird comic situations.
There are only 4 reasons to watch this show. Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, Martin Sheen, and Sam Waterston. Otherwise, I don't know. Although I like the show, I think it's fine. It's never quite as funny as I want it to be, never quite as insightful as I want it to be. I just feel like these guys bring, especially Fonda and Lily Tomlin, not just a professionalism to it, which Netflix clearly does not deserve, but also they bring a little bit of like subtext, in terms of like just sorrow and being dumped late in life. There's a little stuff there. I wish there was more of it, but ultimately you have to watch it for these 4 people. Otherwise, there's no point. Because if they start 4 unknowns or 4 people I didn't care enough about, I don't think I'd care about the show at all. Season 6 of Archer is on DVD. This is the FX show that I think is pretty funny. I like this show. This is kind of a spy spoof. Sterling Archer is like this kind of sexy spy who's a little bit clueless and a little bit sarcastic and just a little bit ridiculous. And I like Archer a lot. I think it's a funny show. The guy who does the main voice, the guy voice of Archer, is also does a voice on Family Guy. And I think the guy's got a very funny, droll voice. Like him a lot. I do like Archer. Check that out. Also, we have Season 1 of Casual. Now, when Jason Reitman, who EPs this show, when he did Men, Women, and Children, that was his last film about how these which
I liked.
These kids today and their cell phones
and their texting, which I think everyone else was really harsh on that. I thought that had a lot of good stuff in it.
I just felt like I was being lectured to. I just felt it was like this big harangue about how terrible cell phones are and how terrible Facebook is and how terrible texting is. I feel like with Casual, he's more into his wheelhouse, which is modern romance. It's got an adult sensibility. It's got a certain amount of wisdom in terms of like friendships and figuring out, like where you are in terms of your parents. That, if your parents are screwed up, that's okay because you can still make a better life for yourself. And I feel like there's just enough depth here, just enough comedy in here, just enough insight and good characters in here that I feel like Reitman, again, he didn't direct all these episodes, but he's definitely the showrunner, one of. I feel like he's a little more in his wheelhouse. Season 2, I think, is coming up, and hopefully they'll build on that success. But Season 1 of Casual is on DVD.
Bravo. All right. Let's see, Mark. We're not going to be able to get through everything else that we have left. So we've basically got. Actually, you know what? Got some other films here we should hit real quickly, and then I'll do some British TV. So let me make fast mention. You do that one. I'll hit these. Only Angels Have Wings, finally out from Criterion. You know what's funny about this? In late 2014, there was a Blu-ray of Only Angels Have Wings. The first time it was on Blu-ray that was released from the Turner Classics library, which was being released at the time through Sony and Columbia. And they were unbelievably stingy and very badly managed in terms of how they were handling that. And I harassed them forever to get me a copy of that. And I don't know what the issue was. They were never able to do it. Nobody could find one. It was staggering. And I pursued that well into last year. And then found out, Only Angels Have Wings coming out from Criterion. So screw it. Don't need that previous version. So we finally have Only Angels Have Wings, Blu-ray from Criterion. Classic old Howard Hawks film with Gene Arcer and Cary Grant. And piled sky high with extras, which includes this fantastic new 4K restoration that is so gorgeous, it's unbelievable. I saw this film on a nitrate print in film school, which was not to be believed. This is comparable. I mean, it really is. It is comparable. It is just not to be believed how gorgeous this is. And you get an interview with David Thompson, great classic film critic who's kind of a god in our field. audio excerpts from a 1972 conversation with Howard Hawks and Peter Bogdanovich, a new little kind of documentary featurette went on Howard Hawks and his aviation movies, an adaptation for Lux Radio Theater from 1939. Really just a bunch of wonderful stuff, as well as an essay by Michael Schragow, who is, of course, a colleague of ours. And here's the kicker. This is one of the great films from 1939, the year of great films. Only Angels Have Wings. I don't even like this movie.
What?
I don't even like this movie. I think this is just, for those who don't know, it is essentially the one of the original great adventure movies that it takes place in a little South American outpost, and it deals with pilots and daring pilots and peppy women. Jean Arthur is that. She's got moxie, and Cary Grant's got charm. And it's white people in some kind of an inclement third world environment, struggling to just show how much moxie they all have. And I just think the whole thing is just unbelievably convoluted and drawn out and makes no sense whatsoever. It's just over 2 hours long. It feels like it's about 4 hours. I just think it's horribly overwrought, but it's a classic. People love it. Who am I to judge?
You're a critic. That's what you do for a living.
But I don't like it. I just don't like it. I don't know how else to put it. It's like I should love everything about it. Howard Hawks, Cary Grant, Jean Arthur, pilots, great special effects. I mean, really, even for the era, great special effects. And then also Village of the Damned. This is a collector's edition of the John Carpenter remake of Village of the Damned. This is not the original Village of the Damned. This is the remake from 1995, which is unfortunately not very good, I hate to say. Even though it's got some decent moments in it. You got Christopher Reeve, Kirstie Alley, but it's just the original is still the film. The creepy kids and the whole thing. It's just the original is a great movie, and this just feels too much like we're kind of trying to reinvent something that didn't need to be reinvented. But anyway, this is from Shout Factory and the Scream Factory line, and if you're a John Carpenter fan, by all means, you're going to want to check it out. It's got tons and tons and tons and tons of special features, featurettes, and new interviews, and all that fun stuff. They just load this thing up. So if you're a fan of the movie, fan of John Carpenter, you get plenty.
Speaking of John Carpenter, Wade already knows this. This broke a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to make Wade throw up because Sean Levy is remaking Starman. I
saw that, and I had a little mini stroke. I did. I saw that, and I thought, how, of all the what? Every once in a while, I will see that some director I absolutely loathe is preparing to remake a movie that I either love or have a great deal of respect for. And like Zack Snyder, when he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been checking out The Fountainhead." Okay, I would have had an aneurysm over that again, as I mentioned, if I didn't know for a fact that there's not a chance that that's going to happen. But like Starman, why don't mess with that, man? Leave your hands off. Levy, go do a TV series.
Go do Night at the Museum 17.
Please, keep making Night at the Museum movies and spin-offs of Night at the Museum. Make that your entire life's preoccupation.
Anyway, we love the folks at Scream Factory, but I don't really like this DVD or Blu-ray. It's a double feature, Destroyer and Edge of Sanity. Now, both these films feature Anthony Perkins. Now, the Destroyer is from 1988. This thing stars Lyle Alzado. Now, Lyle Alzado was a football player for the Raiders.
Who died.
He died.
Yeah.
And he was a football player for the Raiders, and he was part of that, like the O.J. Simpson, Jim Brown, Lyle Alzado, Brian Bosworth. They're all trying to make these football players, because they're so buff, into these action stars. And this thing is just terrible. Anyway, Lyle Alzado he's a convicted killer, and he's about to be electrocuted, but on the day of the electrocution, a riot breaks out in the prison. And then what happens to Lyle Alzado? He becomes the Destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's just terrible. And Edge of Sanity, here's the thing with Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins, obviously, his iconic role is in Psycho, and it's sequels, because his sequels are all terrible, except for the way that Perkins says the word cutlery in Psycho 2. It's my cutlery, because he has a relationship with cutlery, thanks to the original Psycho. Anyway, Perkins... it's very rare to see an Anthony Perkins film where he doesn't get to play a crazy person, and in Edge of Sanity, he gets to play like 3 crazy people. And this movie, which is from '89, is just terrible. He plays not only Dr. Jekyll, not only Mr. Hyde, but he might also be Jack the Ripper. He kind of gets to play all 3.
Oh, that's lovely.
in this terrible film called Edge of Sanity. Just not a fan. If you know what, if you want to see Anthony Perkins, if you like Anthony Perkins, and you want to see him in a regular role as an actual person, I would recommend Play It As It Lays, which is based on the Joan Didion novel. Which is kind of bizarre, cold, but somehow intriguing, if not mesmerizing, Hollywood kind of satire. And Perkins plays one of the main roles. That's a great opportunity to see Anthony Perkins play an actual person and not just a crazy person, which after Psycho, I guess, is the only roles he was offered. So if you want to see him do something decent, I would check out Play It As It Lays, which I don't know if that's on DVD. It is on DVD, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I don't know.
The Joan Didion film?
Yeah, I don't know. Question.
Interesting. Anyway, there you go.
All right, and then lastly, I'm going to burn through some British TV here, which we have let kind of accumulate for a few weeks. The first one here is Prisoners' Wives, the complete collection, which originally aired on BBC. This is from Acorn, 4 discs, approximately 10 hours worth of material here, 10 individual episodes, and I got to tell you, this is a great series. This is really, really great. I thought that this would wind up being kind of like the Desperate Housewives of mob wives, right? That kind of a thing. It's not at all. It's really incredibly insightful and very touching and really well written. It gets right into the nitty gritty of what happens when you are left behind and your spouse, your male spouse in this case, goes to prison. It is jaw-droppingly well thought out and well written. Really, really first rate. The Trials of Jimmy Rose. You know what? This would be great for no reason other than the fact that Ray Winstone stars in it. That's it. Ray Winstone could just sit in a chair and talk to me, break the fourth wall for 2 hours, and I would just be absolutely fine. This is about 2.5 hours long, 3 episodes, about an ex-con named Jimmy Rose who's been locked away for well over a decade, and he comes home. And it is all about what happens when he finds out that his family, the family he left behind, is kind of screwed up, and now he's sort of got to do whatever he's got to do to take care of his family. It's all about Ray Winstone. I got to tell you, he's just the man.
He is cool.
He's the best. Seasons 1 and 2, or Series 1 and 2, to use the British vernacular, of The Fall. Gillian Anderson, who is just always wonderful, and good on her for going over there and taking a part in a British show. This is great stuff. I'm hoping that this is around for quite a long time. The Fall is really, really great writing. It's just, for some reason, the British do this kind of stuff better than anybody else. So Gillian Anderson basically plays a detective who has to solve a crime in Belfast. And it, of course, turns out to be a rather gruesome addition to the ongoing exploits of a nasty serial killer. And she has to sort of do the Jodie Foster thing now and track down, figure out who's doing it and go through all the jump through all the procedural hoops necessary to solve it. It's fantastic. It's really, really, really great stuff. And it's just solid writing, and one of the things that I think it does particularly well is that each episode feels like a complete reinvention of the story. It just takes a leap from one episode to the other, so you don't feel like it's treading water like so many American shows do.
Well, she's reinvented herself overseas.
Oh, she's done a great job. And each of these, by the way, the first series is 5 episodes, second series is 6 episodes. So when we talk about series, 5, 6, 12, that's still 2 seasons of this thing is like half a season of an American show. So you only have 11 episodes between these 2 seasons, and but it's a lot. It's dense and it's thick and it's really beautifully done. And that's on Blu-ray. That is on Blu-ray. They've really, it looks good and the whole thing. The complete collection. This is one that a lot of people will have a fondness for. Peter Bowles, another one of those great British actors who never really became a movie star, but he's always been really top on television in Rumple of the Bailey and a lot of other great shows. This is 18 episodes, 16 hours. The Irish RM. This is wonderful. This was a very popular Masterpiece Theater production. This was originally done in the mid-1980s, and I actually discovered this when I was in Europe at the time, and it's just really, really charming. It's about a guy who's basically an Irish magistrate and just dealing with all of these peculiar people in the area around him. It's not like over-the-top Father Ted silly, but it's got a certain charm, kind of this similar charm to it. That whole eccentric Irish village thing that so many TV shows and movies really have a lot of fun with, and a lot of great supporting performances. It's just delightful, really, really charming, and most of it centers around the fact that Peter Bowles is a fantastic actor and can basically do no wrong. And let's wrap out with Humans, the uncut UK edition. This is more pushing the envelope with British television. The kind of thing that really becomes part of British television in the wake of Doctor Who, because genre television is not really what anybody in the UK did, apart from Jerry Anderson back in the 60s and 70s. He was kind of like the sum total of genre television in the UK, apart from Doctor Who. But now they're doing it more and more, and you get stuff like Humans. And a lot of Americans show up in this as well, and it's basically dealing with like synthetic humans, replicants, androids in the near future who are supposed to be servants to people, supposed to take care of us, but of course they wind up having a mind of their own, as replicants slash androids slash whatever always do. And the way that they build this drama out is quite provocative. It's very, very provocative and very smart. So good on them. That's 8 episodes, 385 minutes on 3 discs, and let's see where that goes. Maybe that'll turn into a bigger thing too. Keep that story going.
I can see that being a film.
I can too.
Like if that was like a YA novel,
yeah,
that would already be like a
in a heartbeat
picture deal.
Yeah, absolutely, in a heartbeat. All right, with that, you can email us anything you want, Vox boxes, emails, the usual at gods@digigods.com, and we will see you next week.
A film from 1962, directed by Sidney. It was awesome. When I say awesome, I mean awesomely bad, and yet awesomely good at the same time. Good stuff. Journey to the Seventh Planet. Great cheesy sci-fi.
All right, well, that's it for this week. We will see you guys next week.